The massive doors of the Galactic Federation Council opened with a deep rumble that echoed through the enormous chamber. Ambassador Hyunwoo walked slowly across the polished floor, his black shoes clicking against the stone. Above him, the ceiling stretched so high it disappeared into darkness. Around him, representatives from 13 different alien species sat in curved rows, their eyes focused on the single human walking toward the center. Hyunwoo carried only a simple tablet and wore a plain dark suit. He looked very small in the huge room, but he walked with calm confidence. His face showed no fear, no worry, no anger. He simply looked like a man going to a normal business meeting. The Vorthak Empire controlled most of the Federation. Their leader, Commander Veltar, stood up from his seat. He was over 8 feet tall with thick gray skin and 4 arms. His voice boomed across the chamber when he spoke. "Human," Veltar said, making the word sound like an insult. "You stand before the greatest powers in the galaxy, 13 species that have ruled space for thousands of years. Do you understand why you are here?" Hyunwoo stopped at the speaker's circle in the center of the floor. He placed his tablet on the small stand there and looked up at the alien faces staring down at him. "I believe you have something to tell me," he said quietly. Veltar's 4 hands clenched into fists. "Your species has become a problem. In just 200 years you have spread to over 50 worlds. You take resources that belong to others. You ignore our laws. You refuse to ask permission before you build your colonies." From another section, High Priestess Zalnina of the Zalani floated forward. The Zalani looked like tall, thin humans, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. They could read minds and see the future, which made them very dangerous. "We have looked into your thoughts, human," she said, her voice like music. "Your species dreams of conquering the galaxy. You believe you are special. You are wrong." More voices joined in. The Queen of the Kick spoke through clicking sounds that came from her insect-like mouth. Her words appeared on translation screens around the room. "The Hive has decided. Humans must be controlled." Elder Thexra, of the ancient Elderlings, raised one wrinkled hand. His species was the oldest in the Federation, and other aliens respected their wisdom. "Young species often make mistakes," he said slowly, "but they usually learn quickly when faced with extinction." Hyunwoo listened to each speaker without moving. He made notes on his tablet sometimes, but his face never changed. When the last alien finished talking, Veltar stepped forward again. "This is our decision," the Vorthak commander announced. "Humanity will surrender all colonies beyond your home system immediately. You will accept Federation oversight of all human activities. You will provide tribute of rare minerals and advanced technology to support the greater galactic community. You will limit your population and never build another starship without our permission." The chamber fell silent. Every alien eye watched, the small human standing alone in the circle. Hyunwoo picked up his tablet and read the message on its screen. Then he looked up at the hundreds of alien faces surrounding him. "That's quite a list," he said calmly. "I'll need to discuss this with my government. How much time do I have?" Veltar showed his sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. "You have 1 standard galactic week, 7 of your Earth days. After that, we will take what we want by force." "And if we refuse?" Hyunwoo asked. High Priestess Zalnina's large, black eyes seemed to glow. "Then your species will join the 47 others that no longer exist in this region of space. Their worlds are now empty. Their names are forgotten. They made the same mistake you are considering." "I see," Hyunwoo said. He made another note on his tablet. 7 days to decide between slavery and extinction. That's very generous of you." Several aliens laughed at what they thought was human sarcasm born from fear. But Hyunwoo's voice carried no sarcasm at all. He sounded like he was truly grateful for the time. Elder Thexra leaned forward in his seat. "Young human, do you understand what you face? The Federation controls 3,000 worlds. Our combined fleets number over 10 million ships. We have weapons that can destroy stars. We have fought wars that lasted centuries. Your entire species has existed in space for less time than some of our individual battles. Hyunwoo nodded respectfully. That's very impressive. I'll make sure to include those numbers in my report. He touched something on his tablet. A small light blinked green for just a moment. Is there anything else you need to tell me? He asked. Commander Veltar stepped down to the main floor, his heavy feet shaking the ground. He stood directly in front of Hyunwoo, using his height to loom over the human. Yes, I want you to understand something very clearly. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is the only choice your species will ever get. Serve the Federation or disappear completely. Hyunwoo looked up at the massive alien without fear. I understand perfectly, Commander. You've made your position very clear. He turned to address the entire chamber. On behalf of humanity, I thank the Federation for this opportunity to avoid unnecessary conflict. I will carry your message to Earth and return with our answer within the time limit you've given us. The human gathered his tablet and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the silent chamber as hundreds of alien beings watched him leave. Just before he reached the doors, he stopped and turned back. Commander Veltar, he called out across the vast room. Just to be absolutely certain I understand correctly, you want humanity to choose between complete surrender and total war. Is that right? Those are your only options, Veltar replied loudly. Choose wisely, human. Your species has 7 days to avoid extinction. Hyunwoo smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was a small, quiet smile that somehow made several aliens feel uncomfortable without knowing why. Thank you for clarifying that, he said. We'll be in touch. The doors closed behind him with a final boom that seemed to shake the entire building. In the chamber, the alien representatives began discussing their victory over the upstart human species. They were confident that Earth would surrender quickly when faced with impossible odds. None of them noticed the small device that Hyunwoo had activated with his tablet. None of them detected the signal that was already racing across the galaxy at speeds their best technology couldn't match, and none of them understood what the human smile had really meant. On thousands of human worlds in hidden bases scattered across space, and aboard ships that officially didn't exist, the same message appeared on screens everywhere. Protocol 7 is now active. The hunt begins at dawn. 7 days passed without a single word from humanity. The Federation Council waited for desperate messages begging for mercy. They expected human ambassadors to arrive with offers of partial surrender. Instead, they got complete silence. Admiral Mordock of the Vorthak paced around his command ship like a caged animal. His forearms gestured angrily as he spoke to his bridge crew. Nothing. Not one transmission from any human world. What are they planning? Perhaps they are too frightened to respond, suggested his communications officer. Fear can make species do strange things. Or perhaps they are preparing to surrender, added another officer. They might be gathering their leaders to make the decision official. Admiral Mordock was not convinced. In his long military career, he had conquered dozens of worlds and destroyed entire civilizations. Silence usually meant one of two things: complete surrender or desperate preparation for war. Humans didn't seem like the type to surrender quietly. When the deadline passed with still no response from Earth, the Federation acted quickly. Admiral Mordock received orders to launch a demonstration attack against New Busan, humanity's newest colony world. The operation would show overwhelming Federation power while keeping human casualties relatively low. The goal was to terrify Earth into immediate surrender. The attack force was impressive by any measure. 200 ships from 6 different Federation species surrounded New Busan's star system. Vorthak battleships flew alongside Zalani mine ships and kick swarm vessels. The combined firepower could have destroyed a small moon. This should convince them, Admiral Mordock told his fleet commanders over the communication network. When they see what we can do to their precious colony, Earth, will beg for mercy. But when the Federation fleet arrived at New Busan, they found empty space where the planet should have been. Sensor malfunction, Admiral Mordock growled. Check the navigation systems. We must be in the wrong place. His officers worked frantically at their control panels. The star was correct. The asteroid belts matched their charts perfectly. The two small moons were exactly where they should be, but the planet itself had simply vanished. "Sir," his science officer reported nervously, "all systems are working correctly. According to our instruments, there never was a planet here." "Impossible," Mordock roared. "Federation intelligence confirmed a human colony of 50,000 people on this world. Just last month." That's when Captain Do-yoon's voice came through their communication system. The human sounded relaxed, almost amused. "Looking for something, Admiral?" Every alien ship in the fleet turned their sensors toward the source of the transmission, but they detected nothing except empty space. Do-yoon continued speaking from somewhere they couldn't see. "I have to say, this is quite a welcoming committee. 200 ships just to visit our little colony. We're honored by the attention." Admiral Mordock activated his fleet-wide communication system. "Human ship, reveal yourself immediately. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." "Surrounded?" Do-yoon laughed. "That's an interesting way to look at it. Tell me, Admiral, how do you surround something you can't find?" The Vorthak commander's face turned dark with rage. "Enough games. Show yourself or we will destroy this entire star system." "Oh, there's no need for threats," Do-yoon replied cheerfully. "We're right here." The space behind the Federation fleet suddenly shimmered like water. A massive planet appeared out of nowhere, along with 30 human warships that had been completely invisible moments before. New Busan hung in space like it had always been there, its cities gleaming under the star's light. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Mordock's science officer. "They moved an entire planet. How did they move an entire planet? More importantly," Do-yoon's voice continued, "how did you miss 30 ships sitting right behind you for the last 10 minutes? Panic spread through the Federation fleet as their sensors finally detected the human vessels. The ships were unlike anything in Federation databases. They had no obvious weapons, no visible engines, and their hulls seemed to bend light around them in strange ways. "All ships, attack formation," Admiral Mordock commanded. "Destroy those human vessels immediately." The Federation fleet turned to engage the humans, but something was wrong. Their weapons wouldn't lock onto the human ships. Every time a Federation vessel tried to target a human craft, their targeting systems claimed there was nothing there to shoot at. "Sir," reported a weapons officer, "our computers say those ships don't exist." "They're right there," Mordock shouted, pointing at the clearly visible human vessels. "I can see them with my own eyes." "The sensors detect them," the officer explained frantically, "but the targeting computers refuse to acknowledge them as valid targets. It's like they're classified as natural phenomena instead of artificial constructs." That's when the human ships began to move. They didn't fly like normal spacecraft. Instead, they seemed to slip through space like fish swimming through water. One moment, a human ship would be directly ahead of a Federation vessel. The next, it would be behind them without appearing to travel the distance in between. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 17 minutes. The human ships didn't use recognizable weapons. Instead, Federation vessels simply began to malfunction and explode. Some ships lost power and drifted helplessly. Others had their hulls dissolve like they were made of paper. A few ships vanished completely, leaving only empty space where they had been. Lieutenant Eunji watched the destruction from the bridge of the human vessel Silent Morning. She was young for a ship's officer, but her eyes held the calm confidence that seemed common among humans. "Captain Do-yoon," she reported, "Federation fleet strength down to 15%. Should we finish them?" "Leave one ship intact," Do-yoon ordered. "The Admiral's flagship should survive. Someone needs to carry the message back." Admiral Mordock's command ship floated alone among the wreckage of his fleet. His bridge crew stared in shock at their displays. In less than 20 minutes, they had watched the complete destruction of one of the Federation's most powerful task forces. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." Lieutenant Eunji's face appeared on their main screen. She looked very young and very dangerous. "Admiral Mordock, my name is Lieutenant Eunji of the Human Colonial Defense Force. I have a message for the Federation Council." The Vorthak Admiral tried to speak, but no words came out. His vocal cords seemed paralyzed by what he had witnessed. Please, pay attention, Yunji continued politely. This is important. Humanity has reviewed the Federation's proposal, and we must respectfully decline your offer. She paused to check something on her own display, then looked back at the camera. We have a counter-proposal for the Federation. You have 30 days to withdraw all military forces from the Outer Rim territories. This includes the Vorthak, Silani, Kix, and all other Federation species. Civilian populations may remain if they wish, but all military installations must be evacuated. Admiral Mordock finally found his voice. You're insane. The Federation will never agree to such terms. That's unfortunate, Yunji said with what seemed like genuine sadness. We had hoped to resolve this peacefully. But if the Federation chooses war instead of withdrawal, humanity will accommodate that decision. You destroyed my entire fleet. Mordock screamed. How is that peaceful? Admiral, Yunji replied gently. We could have destroyed your entire fleet without leaving any survivors. We could have destroyed it without you even knowing we were here. Instead, we made sure you lived to carry our message. That seems quite peaceful to us. The young human officer leaned forward slightly. Please understand, Admiral. This was not a battle. This was a demonstration. We wanted the Federation to see what 30 human ships could do to 200 of yours. Now imagine what 30,000 human ships could do. Admiral Mordock felt his blood turn cold. 30,000? Oh, that's just the ones we've built recently, Yunji said casually. We've been quite busy while you weren't paying attention. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Mordock alone with the wreckage of his fleet and a message that would shake the Federation to its core. As his damaged ship limped back toward Federation space, he couldn't stop thinking about the young human's final words. 29 days remaining, she had said with a smile. We'll be counting. The emergency session of the Federation Council was unlike anything in galactic history. Representatives from all 13 species gathered on Nexus Prime, their faces showing fear instead of the usual arrogance. Admiral Mordock's report had shaken them badly. The complete destruction of a major fleet by just 30 human ships seemed impossible. Commander Veltar stood before the assembled delegates, his 4 arms shaking with rage. 200 ships, he shouted. 200 of our finest vessels destroyed in 17 minutes. How is this possible? High Priestess Zalnina floated in her meditation position, her large black eyes closed in concentration. The Zelani had been trying to use their psychic powers to understand the human attack, but every attempt failed. I cannot see them, she whispered. When I try to look into human minds during battle, there is only emptiness. It's as if they stop existing as living beings. Elder Thexra, the oldest member of the council, spoke slowly. Perhaps we have made an error in our assessment of this species. We assumed they were primitive because they only recently appeared in our records. But what if we were wrong? Impossible, snapped Queen Villandra of the Kix. Her insect-like features clicked as she spoke. The hive mind has calculated all possibilities. Humans have only had spaceflight for 200 years. They cannot possess technology superior to ours. That's when Dr. Quan Ho requested permission to address the council. The human xenobiologist had been studying on Nexus Prime for 3 years as part of a cultural exchange program. Until now, the aliens had barely noticed him. He was just another example of humanity's primitive scientific curiosity. Honored delegates, Quan Ho said as he walked to the center of the chamber. I believe I can explain what happened at New Busan. Commander Veltar looked down at the small human with disgust. You think you understand war better than our military leaders? I understand my own species, Quan Ho replied calmly, and I think it's time you learned the truth about humanity. He activated a portable hologram projector and displayed a star chart of the local galactic region. It showed all known Federation territories, trade routes, and military installations. The aliens recognized it immediately. This is your current understanding of human expansion, Quan Ho explained. 54 colonies, all within 500 light-years of Earth, all established within the last 2 centuries, all primitive and barely defended. The hologram flickered and changed. Suddenly, thousands of new points of light appeared on the map. Human settlements in star systems the Federation thought were empty. bases in nebulae that instruments couldn't penetrate, installations orbiting black holes that should have been impossible to reach. This is the reality, Quan Ho said quietly. Humanity has been in space for over 1,000 years. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Several alien delegates stood up from their seats shouting that the hologram must be fake. But Elder Thexra raised one ancient hand for silence. His species had the most advanced sensors in the Federation, and he knew what he was seeing was real. Continue, the elderling said. Quan Ho nodded respectfully. The 54 colonies you know about are the ones we wanted you to find. They were bait, designed to make you think you understood human capabilities. While you watched those obvious settlements, we built our real civilization in places you never thought to look. Lies, Commander Veltar roared. If humans had such advanced technology, why did you hide it? Why pretend to be weak? Because we needed to learn about you, Quan Ho explained. Every species in the Federation, your strengths, your weaknesses, your military tactics, your political structures, we needed to understand how you think before we decided what to do about you. High Priestess Zalnina opened her eyes and stared at the human scientist. What do you mean? What to do about us? Quan Ho's expression grew sad. The 47 species that used to exist in this region before the Federation was formed. The ones your history claims died from natural disasters or simply disappeared. They didn't disappear, Priestess, they declared war on humanity. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Even the translation computers seemed to struggle with the implications of what the human had said. You're claiming that humans destroyed 47 entire species? Elder Thexra asked slowly. I'm stating a historical fact, Quan Ho replied. Some of those species attacked human colonies. Others tried to enslave human populations. A few decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. They all made the same mistake you're making now. Queen Valandra's clicking grew faster, a sign of extreme agitation among the Keeks. What mistake? You assumed that because humans appeared primitive, we actually were primitive. You judged us by your own standards of technological development. But humanity doesn't follow the same path as other species. Quan Ho changed the hologram to show various human settlements. Some were built inside asteroid fields that should have crushed any normal structure. Others existed in the hearts of gas giants, where the pressure would destroy Federation ships instantly. Still others appeared to be floating in open space with no visible means of support. While your species developed better weapons and stronger armor, humanity learned to hide. While you built bigger ships and more powerful engines, we learned to travel through spaces that don't officially exist. While you created advanced computers and artificial intelligence, we taught ourselves to think in ways that your psychic species can't even detect. High Priestess Zalnina shuddered. That's why I cannot read human minds during combat. You're not thinking in normal space-time. Exactly, Quan Ho confirmed. Human consciousness can exist partially outside normal reality when necessary. It makes us very difficult to predict or counter. Commander Veltar stepped closer to the human scientist. Even if this is true, you are still vastly outnumbered. The Federation has billions of ships and trillions of soldiers. The Federation has never fought humanity at full strength, Quan Ho said simply. What you call the human military is actually just our exploration and colonization force. They're scientists and engineers who happen to know how to defend themselves. Then, where is your real military? Elder Thexra demanded. Quan Ho smiled, and several aliens suddenly felt very cold. Honored Elder, humanity doesn't have a military in the way you understand the concept. We have something much more dangerous. What? We have humans, Quan Ho said. Every human is a potential weapon when threatened. Every human settlement is a fortress when attacked. Every human ship is a warship when necessary. We don't separate our civilians from our military because the distinction is meaningless. He gestured to himself. I'm a xenobiologist. I study alien cultures and write research papers. But if you threaten my species, I become something else entirely. Something your worst nightmares can't imagine. The hologram changed again, showing the recent battle at New Busan from multiple angles. The Federation delegates watched their powerful fleet being destroyed by ships that seemed to defy every law of physics they knew. The 30 ships that defeated Admiral Mordoc's fleet were crewed by farmers, teachers, artists, and shopkeepers from New Busan Colony, Quan Ho explained. They were ordinary people defending their homes. They had never fought a real battle before. Commander Veltar's face went pale. If those were civilians, then what would your actual warriors be capable of? Quan Ho's smile became wider and much more frightening. Commander, humanity doesn't have warriors in the way you understand the term. We have something that your species gave up long ago when you became civilized. We have predators. Every human is descended from persistence hunters who chased prey across continents until it collapsed from exhaustion. We are the species that looked at every other creature on our world and decided which ones to eat, which ones to domesticate, and which ones to drive extinct. We are the beings that saw fire and thought, I can use this. We looked at the atom and thought, I can split this. We stared into space and thought, I can conquer this. The chamber had become so quiet that the only sound was the hum of the environmental systems. The Federation made a fundamental error, Quan Ho continued. You assumed that because we appeared recently in your records, we were a young species. But humanity is older than most of your civilizations. We just spent our time learning how to hunt in three-dimensional space across galactic distances. He deactivated the hologram and looked directly at each alien delegate in turn. You have 28 days to withdraw from the Outer Rim territories. If you refuse, humanity will demonstrate why 47 species before you chose extinction over continued warfare with us. As Quan Ho walked toward the exit, Elder Thexra called out, Human. What happens to species that surrender to humanity? Quan Ho paused at the doors. We leave them alone, Elder. Humanity doesn't conquer other species. We simply eliminate threats to our children's future. The choice of which category you fall into is entirely up to you. The doors closed behind him, leaving the Federation delegates alone with a terrible new understanding of what they faced. In the following hours, 3 more species would quietly withdraw from the Federation and flee to distant galaxies. They had looked into the abyss of human nature and decided that survival was more important than pride. The hunt had truly begun. The Federation's response to humanity's ultimatum was swift and desperate. Within hours of Dr. Quan Ho's revelation, every remaining Federation world went to maximum military alert. Fleets that had been scattered across the galaxy were recalled to defend the most important systems. Emergency conscription began on dozens of worlds as civilian populations were drafted into military service. Admiral Texmore of the Zelani Empire commanded the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 3,000 ships from 8 different species surrounded the fortress world of Kethmaran, the Federation's most heavily defended military base. The planet's surface was covered with energy shields, weapons platforms, and underground bunkers that could withstand direct hits from starkillers. Let the humans come, Admiral Texmore declared to his fleet commanders. They destroyed one small task force with surprise and trickery, but they cannot defeat the combined might of the Federation's greatest powers fighting together. High Priestess Zalnina, now serving as the fleet's psychic warfare specialist, floated in her meditation chamber aboard the flagship. She had been trying for days to detect any human presence in the surrounding space but found nothing. Either there were no humans nearby, or they were somehow invisible to her mental probes. Status report, Admiral Texmore demanded. All sensors clear, reported his science officer. No ships within 50 light-years of this position. If humans are coming, they're not here yet. Maintain vigilance, the Admiral ordered. Humans seem to prefer surprise attacks. We will be ready for them this time. But Commander Tae-min and his strike force were already there. They had been hiding inside the planet's molten core for 3 days, waiting for the Federation fleet to arrive. The human ships existed in a state that Federation science couldn't explain, somehow present and absent at the same time, occupying spaces that normal matter couldn't reach. All teams report ready, Taemin whispered into his communication device. His voice wouldn't carry through normal space, but human technology had learned to transmit messages through dimensions that officially didn't exist. "Begin Phase 1, came the reply from his tactical officer, Jin'e. The attack began from inside Kethmaran itself. The planet's defense systems suddenly turned on each other as human infiltrators took control of the automated networks. Weapons, platforms that should have been defending the world, began firing at their own shield generators. Underground bunkers sealed themselves, trapping thousands of Federation soldiers inside. "What's happening?" Admiral Texmore shouted as his sensors detected massive explosions across the planet's surface. "Unknown, sir," his tactical officer replied frantically. "The planetary defenses are malfunctioning. They're attacking their own installations." "Impossible. Those systems are completely automated and isolated from outside interference." That's when Commander Taemin's voice came through the fleet's communication system. "Admiral Texmore, this is Commander Taemin of the Human Defense Corps. Please, order your fleet to withdraw immediately." Every ship in the Federation fleet turned their sensors toward the planet, but they still detected no human presence anywhere. "Show yourself, coward!" Admiral Texmore demanded. "Fight us with honor." "Admiral," Taemin replied patiently, "we are fighting you. We've been fighting you for the last 10 minutes. Your planetary defense network is now under our control, and your orbital stations will be destroyed in approximately 30 seconds. As if summoned by his words, the massive weapons platforms orbiting Kethmaran began to explode, not from external attack but from internal sabotage. Somehow human agents had infiltrated systems that were supposed to be completely secure. "How are you doing this?" Admiral Texmore screamed. "We asked your computers very nicely to ignore us," Taemin explained. "Most artificial intelligence systems are quite cooperative once you know how to talk to them properly." High Priestess Zalnina gasped from her meditation chamber. "Admiral, I can sense them now. The humans are everywhere, inside our ships, around our ships, between our ships. How did they get past our sensors?" "Simple," Taemin answered, apparently listening to their private communications somehow. "Your sensors are designed to detect things that exist in normal space-time. We learned long ago how to exist in several different dimensions simultaneously." The Federation fleet opened fire on empty space, hoping to hit the invisible human ships. Their weapons passed harmlessly through areas where sensors detected human vessels, striking nothing but vacuum. Meanwhile, Admiral So-Young was conducting her own operation in the Vorthak home system. Her target was the massive space fortress called the Iron Fist, which controlled access to the Vorthak homeworld. The fortress was the size of a small moon, and armed with enough weapons to destroy entire fleets. But So-Young didn't attack the fortress directly. Instead, she did something that Federation military doctrine said was impossible. She weaponized a neutron star. The nearby neutron star, which had been stable for millions of years, suddenly began to pulse with unnatural energy. Gravitational. Waves rippled through space, pulling the Iron Fist slowly but irresistibly toward the stellar remnant. "This is impossible," broadcast General Morthek from the doomed fortress. "Stars don't behave this way. What are you doing to our system?" "We're teaching it new physics," Admiral So-Young replied calmly. "Your fortress will be torn apart by gravitational forces in approximately 6 hours. I recommend evacuation." "Our engines can't overcome these gravitational fields." "I know," So-Young said. "That's the point. However, we'll provide transportation for your crew if you surrender immediately." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on dozens of Federation worlds. General Namsik captured the impregnable fortress world of Vextara by convincing the planet's defense computers that his fleet was actually a natural asteroid field. The automated weapons systems, programmed to only fire at artificial threats, ignored the human ships completely while they landed troops on the surface. Captain Yun-Ho destroyed an entire Kix Hive fleet by somehow turning their own biological ships against them. The living vessels, bred for warfare over thousands of years, suddenly refused to fight and instead began to sing strange harmonies that put their crews into peaceful sleep. Colonel Min-jae eliminated a Zalani psychic warfare division by broadcasting thoughts that their mind readers couldn't process. The psychic soldiers, overwhelmed by concepts that existed outside normal mental space, collapsed into unconsciousness, and couldn't be awakened. Each human victory followed the same pattern. Federation forces would detect no human presence until it was too late. Then human ships would appear from impossible directions using weapons and tactics that defied every known law of physics. The battles would end quickly with minimal human casualties and total Federation defeat. But the most disturbing part for the surviving aliens was the messages. After each engagement, one Federation ship would be left intact to carry word back to command. The message was always the same, delivered by whatever human officer had led the attack. 23 days remaining. 19 days remaining. 15 days remaining. The countdown continued with mechanical precision as human forces systematically dismantled Federation military power across hundreds of light years. Entire fleets vanished without trace. Fortress worlds that had stood for millennia were captured in hours. Defense networks that had protected civilizations for thousands of years crumbled like sandcastles. Elder Thexera, monitoring the reports from his homeworld, began to understand the true horror of what the Federation faced. "They're not just defeating us," he told his advisors. "They're teaching us that everything we know about warfare is wrong." "What do you mean, Elder?" asked his military commander. "They're showing us that our weapons, our defenses, our strategies, none of it matters. They exist in a reality where our rules don't apply. We're fighting beings who can ignore the fundamental laws that govern how we think the universe works." Meanwhile, High Priestess Zalnina made an even more disturbing discovery. "I've been analyzing the psychic residue from their attacks," she reported to the emergency council session. "These humans aren't using technology in the way we understand it." "What do you mean?" Commander Veltar demanded. "They're not building machines that break physical laws," she explained. "They're thinking in ways that make the physical laws irrelevant. When a human ship exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, it's not because of their technology, it's because the human mind can simply choose to exist in multiple dimensions." The realization sent shockwaves through the remaining Federation leadership. They weren't fighting an advanced technological civilization. They were fighting a species that had somehow evolved beyond the normal limitations of reality itself. "How do you fight an enemy that can choose which laws of physics to obey?" Admiral Texmore asked during one of the increasingly desperate strategy meetings. "You don't," Elder Thexra replied quietly. "You surrender or you cease to exist. Those appear to be our only options." By the 15th day of humanity's ultimatum, 5 more Federation species had completely disappeared. Not destroyed in battle, but simply gone. Their worlds were empty, their fleets missing, their populations vanished, without a trace. "Where did they go?" Commander Veltar asked Doctor. On the 30th day of humanity's ultimatum, the Great Council chamber of the Galactic Federation felt more like a tomb than a seat of power. Of the 13 species that had issued humanity's original ultimatum, only 5 remained. The others had simply vanished during the 30-day countdown. Their worlds empty, their fleets gone, their entire civilizations relocated to places unknown. The survivors sat in the massive chamber like broken ghosts. Commander Veltar of the Vorthak Empire had lost 3/4 of his fleet and half his worlds. High Priestess Zalnina's psychic powers had been nearly destroyed by her attempts to understand human consciousness. Elder Thexra looked older than his ancient years, his species' proud military tradition shattered in mere weeks. "Any word from the human ambassador?" Commander Veltar asked weakly. "He requested permission to address the council 1 hour ago," replied the chamber's coordinator. "He should arrive shortly." Admiral Mordock, one of the few surviving military commanders, laughed bitterly. "I wonder if he'll bring the same tablet and wear the same suit, as if nothing has changed." "Everything has changed," Elder Thexra said quietly. "We just haven't admitted it yet." The massive doors opened with their familiar rumble, and Ambassador Hyunwoo walked across the polished floor exactly as he had 30 days earlier. He carried the same simple tablet and wore an identical dark suit. His expression was calm and professional, showing no triumph or anger. The chamber that had once held hundreds of alien delegates now contained fewer than 50. Hyunwoo's footsteps echoed in the vast empty space as he approached the speaker's circle. He placed his tablet on the stand and looked up at the surviving Federation leaders. "Honored delegates," he said politely, "I've returned as promised. Have you reached a decision regarding our counter-proposal?" The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Every alien in the chamber knew what their answer had to be, but speaking it aloud felt like surrendering their souls. Commander Veltar stood slowly, his forearms shaking with exhaustion and defeat. "Ambassador Hyunwoo," he said in a voice barely above a whisper, "the Federation accepts humanity's terms. We surrender unconditionally. We withdraw all military forces from the Outer Rim territories," added Elder Thexra. "We acknowledge human sovereignty over the disputed regions. We agree to all conditions of your ultimatum." Hyunwoo nodded and made a note on his tablet. "Thank you for your cooperation. That's a wise decision that will prevent further unnecessary conflict." He paused and looked around the nearly empty chamber. "However, I'm afraid there's been a change in our requirements." Every alien in the room tensed. They had already lost everything: their military power, their territorial claims, their pride as galactic rulers. What more could humanity possibly want? "The 30-day campaign has provided humanity with new information about Federation capabilities and intentions," Hyunwoo continued calmly. "Based on this data, we've decided that territorial withdrawal is no longer sufficient to ensure the long-term security of human space." What do you want?" High Priestess Zalnina asked, her voice trembling. "We want you to remember," Hyunwoo replied simply. "We want you to teach others what you've learned." He activated his tablet and projected a holographic display showing the galaxy. Humanity's true territory spread across thousands of star systems, far beyond what the Federation had ever imagined. But more importantly, the display showed the current locations of the 8 disappeared Federation species. "As you can see," Hyunwoo explained, "we haven't actually destroyed the species that vanished during our campaign. The Kalari, the Duxtar, the Mven, and the others are all alive and well. They're simply residing in a place we call the Quiet Dark." Elder Thexra leaned forward. "Where is this Quiet Dark?" "It exists in the spaces between spaces," Hyunwoo said. "A pocket dimension where time moves very slowly and consciousness remains fully aware but unable to act. The relocated species are experiencing what you might call an extended pause in their existence. The implications hit the survivors like a physical blow. The missing species weren't dead. They were trapped in a state worse than death, conscious but helpless, aware but unable to escape. They can observe the passage of normal time," Hyunwoo continued conversationally, "but they cannot interact with it. From their perspective, they watch the universe age around them while they remain frozen in a single moment. It's quite educational, according to our observations." Commander Veltar's face went completely pale. "You're monsters." "We're parents," Hyunwoo corrected gently. "Parents who will do anything necessary to protect our children's future. The species in the Quiet Dark chose war with humanity. This is where that choice led them." "How long will you keep them there?" High Priestess Zalnina whispered. "Until humanity faces extinction," Hyunwoo replied. "If our species is ever threatened, with complete annihilation, we'll release them to share their experiences with whoever was responsible. They'll serve as very compelling witnesses to what 30 days of war with humans actually feels like when experienced over subjective centuries." He gestured to the holographic display. "But that's not your fate. You've chosen surrender instead of extinction. That makes you much more valuable to us alive and free." "Valuable how?" Elder Thexra asked. Hyunwoo smiled, and for the first time, the aliens saw something in his expression that made them understand why their mighty Federation had fallen so completely. It wasn't cruelty or anger. It was the patient satisfaction of a predator that had successfully protected its territory. "You're going to be our heralds," he explained. "You'll travel the galaxy and tell every species you encounter about what happened here. You'll explain that there are no weapons powerful enough, no defenses strong enough, and no hiding places deep enough to protect those who threaten humanity's children. You want us to spread fear, Commander Veltar said. We want you to spread truth, Hyunwoo corrected. Fear is just the natural reaction to understanding that truth. He gathered his tablet and began walking toward the exit, then stopped and turned back to address the survivors one final time. The galaxy is vast and full of young species who might someday develop the same arrogance that led the Federation to this moment. When you encounter them, you'll teach them the most important lesson in galactic history. Humanity does not conquer other species. We simply eliminate threats to our children's future. Hyunwoo paused at the chamber doors. The choice of which category any species falls into is always entirely up to them. As the human ambassador left the chamber, every survivor felt the weight of their new purpose settling on their shoulders. They would spend the rest of their lives carrying humanity's message to the far corners of the galaxy, not as conquerors or slaves, but as living warnings of what happened to species that chose war with the deadliest predators in the universe. Within minutes of Hyunwoo's departure, every human ship, every human world, and every trace of human presence simply vanished from Federation sensors. Humanity had returned to the shadows between stars, invisible and patient, watching and waiting for the next threat to their children's future. The Federation dissolved within one standard year. The surviving species scattered across the galaxy, carrying their message to every world they encountered. They established one absolute law that became universal among all spacefaring civilizations. The Sol system was forbidden territory. The third planet was death itself wearing a smile. Young species learned to mark humanity's home system with warning beacons. Old species taught their children never to venture too close to the yellow star with its small blue world. And in the deepest archives of every galactic civilization, scholars recorded the same message in every known language. Here dwells the species that chose love for their children over fear of their enemies. Here live the beings who taught the galaxy that parental instinct is the most dangerous force in the universe. Here wait the humans who showed us all that congratulations. We would only be declaring war on the deadliest species alive. In the quiet dark, 8 civilizations watched the passage of time and remembered the 30 days that changed everything. They served as eternal witnesses to a simple truth. When you threaten humanity's children, you don't fight their military. You don't battle their technology. You don't struggle against their weapons. You fight their love. And love, as the galaxy learned, always wins. Years passed. Decades turned to centuries. New species rose to power while old ones faded into history. But the warning remained constant across all civilizations. Never threaten the small blue world orbiting the yellow star. Never declare war on the species that chose extinction for their enemies over exile for their children. Because in the darkness between the stars, humanity was still watching, still waiting, still ready to teach the galaxy's next would-be conquerors. Why congratulations? They would only be declaring war on the deadliest species alive. The hunt never truly ended. It simply waited for the next fool who needed to learn what it meant to threaten a human child. And in that eternal vigilance, in that patient love, lay humanity's greatest victory. Not just the protection of their own children, but the creation of a galaxy where every species' children could grow up knowing that some threats would never be allowed to exist. The predators had become the protectors,